unlike a restaurant, they try to turn tables quicker, quicker, quicker. The idea here is I want quick, yes, but I also want you to stay longer. If I get you to stay longer, you will spend. And that's the name of the game for our business. And so teaching that to everyone to understand that piece of this business is fundamental.
Hello, and welcome to Care to Lead, the podcast where leadership isn't just a title, it's an action. I'm your executive coach and host, Cynthia Corsetti, and today we're going to talk about something that I find really interesting and near to my own heart, things that happened in our childhood that impact our leadership. Today on our podcast, we're joined by Tim Murphy, the transformative CEO of Boomers Parks, a division of APX operating company under Cerberus Private Equity. Since taking the helm in 2020, Tim has impressively led the company out of bankruptcy to profitability in just 1 year, despite the challenges of a global pandemic. He has achieved this by revolutionizing the customer experience and introducing new revenue streams, resulting in a 180% revenue increase in 2021. Tim's distinguished career spans over 35 years, beginning at Walt Disney World. He has held senior roles over 150 entertainment, restaurant, and food and beverage brands, including notable names like Disney, Rebounders, Trampoline Parks, Darden Restaurants, and more. Tim has played a key role in over 35 purchase transactions across more than 1,200 locations and has facilitated major deals worth up to $350 million. In addition to his role at Boomers Parks, Tim serves as a board director for family entertainment ventures under Carlyle Group in Latin America. He is an active member of several industry associations and holds a BSBA in accounting from the University of Central Florida, along with an MBA in finance from Orlando College. He's also a licensed commercial real estate broker in Florida. And Tim, welcome. And if I missed anything, please, now's your chance to put it in there.
No problem. It's a lot over my career. Some people stay with one company. I've been with a few. So
that's good. No, it's an impressive background. And I think personally, that's what helps leaders be great. So first of all, you took part in my favorite of all the series that I've done with Authority Magazine. This one is my favorite. And there's just so much to unpack about how the way we grew up impacts. And to start with, you grew up in a very unique environment. Would you like to share that with our audience and talk about that a little bit?
With my family? Yeah. My mom and dad my dad was a Maine entrepreneur. He had a 10th grade education. Mom had a high school education. And it was always figuring out something and how to make money. Dad started with a painting business, a fence business, and got into welding business, construction, but lo and behold, he said, I think we could create a little miniature golf arcade and restaurant, and Mom's going to run that. So I've been working with them since I was 8. Unfortunately, they passed away a few years ago, but I got that entrepreneurial bug, if you will, from them being into so many different things. And it was just, eye-opening to me. That's actually what got me into finance and accounting. How do you make more money in business? How do you do a little better with that? That's why I took accounting and finance, to understand that a little bit better with my dad's education. And, he was just a good talker. He's a good salesperson. And he was able to sell fences and houses and welding jobs. And ultimately, did something on the family entertainment side. And that was what was great growing up. I mean, I got to be exposed to so much in those businesses. Lending of money, counting the tills every night, emptying arcade games, learning how to put games on arcade games when, the little levers to press inside. So it's been a fun ride. And then, just got to do it over my career over time. So it's been great.
So I think you said in the article, whenever your family business closed or something, that's when you went to Disney originally, correct?
Yeah, well, I grew up in New Jersey. And so Dad sold off all of our businesses and then ultimately our house, and we moved to the Orlando area. And this was, when Epcot Center opened, 1982. So I got to help open that and work there for a period, kind of on a seasonal basis. They needed people right in the beginning, and I did all the holidays, and ultimately started to work at Disney week after week. Finally, I was in foods. That's where I started. I have to admit that I was, my first job was a Renaissance era, serving food. So it was a purple boots, brown tights, blouse with a rope. That was my costume. And then I moved out of foods, finally into cash control, then ultimately finance at Disney.
It's funny. I have to share with you. My son, who's now 34, when he was 18, he got an internship at Disney. And I'm all about leadership and management, and I'm pounding, drilling stuff into his head. So he goes to Disney and he's serving ice cream at one of these little vendor things out there. And I get a call about a week into it, and he's going, "Mom, these people are making me stand out in this hot sun all day. I don't think they know anything about managing people." And I go, "Why don't you just tell them everything you know about managing people?" And they maybe fix it. It was like the funniest thing. But Disney is so good at that.
And with Disney, I think that's where a lot of core values come from. Obviously parents, entrepreneurial, those sides of things, golden rule, all those things in life. But Disney really gives you a good fundamental of really how to take care of the guest and really how to think like the guest and what does a guest do. And it's kind of what I've instilled in my team with Boomers Parks, our Boomers and our Big Kahuna's brands is, what does a guest think? What does a guest do? What do the guests see? Nobody wants to see at Disney. You never see boxes being delivered. You don't see trash usually anywhere. I mean, it can be busy, of course, and you'll see it, but it'll be disappearing pretty fast. Nobody wants to see that. Everyone wants to have a good time. That's the types of things that we want to be able to instill into our team. But a lot of that comes back from Disney. What you saw, I loved going to Disney after my shift was over. I did all the rides and I ate there, and I love that place. I still do. But it's just, at the end of the day, it's like, what do you see? What does a guest see? And how do you really give that good guest experience at the end of the day?
So I guess that brings me to the question, how do you instill that passion and that, like, the importance of the guest experience and what they see? How do you instill that into the employees at Boomers?
Yeah, there's a lot of ways, right? There's a couple things we did, and I'll get to what I believe has been fundamental for us. But we took everybody through the Disney Institute for Guest Services, and we wanted to see. I wanted my team to understand what Disney does. A lot of my team members in California, Florida, they've been to the parks. They understand it. They love the parks too. But what do they do? How do they look at things? And there's a certain way that Disney looks at things. So that's a portion of it. So you got exposure to what I'll say is the top, Disney. And then you'll say, okay, well, how do we do this within this team? I was consulting for Cerberus prior to the acquisition. And when I took over in June 2020 during the pandemic, I got to experience some unfortunate guest experiences at the parks. As a consultant, I would go around. They didn't know who I was, but I didn't like what I saw and said, all right, we're going to have to change some of this. But I think there's some fundamentals that we have to bring into the company, and that's core values. I mean, you have mission, vision, where you're going, all those types of things, but what do you believe in? What do I believe in that ultimately you're going to believe in? Some of those are honesty, integrity, transparency. I didn't see that with the previous company or the team that was there. And we've had to go through people or get them indoctrinated into this. But there's also innovative risk-taking. There's, social responsibility. There's guest first, team first. These things need to take place, and they need to understand what that means. It's one thing to put a list of 10 things up there, but it's another thing to say, how do I explain this to them? I did this through quotes, and in the beginning it was weekly management meetings. Then we went to bi-weekly, and then once a month I'm doing management team meetings, and we've instilled it into a management training program we've created. So it's really to make sure they understand what we believe in, the reasons why we're here, and what we're doing. One other thing of being profitable sales growth, that wasn't anywhere in anybody's thought process when we took over, nor was taking care of the guest, nor was social responsibility, nor was strategic partnership. Those are things we want to make sure we instill to everyone. And in the beginning was Tim saying this, not everyone believing because they were ingrained before the way they thought about it. But I thought about Disney and what they did and how you were ingrained and always was in front of you. It was always talking about it. I mean, in Disney, you're going on stage when you go out past the wall or past, from the tunnel up to the top. You're going through a lot of different areas, but your bad day that you may have had shouldn't take place with the guest. You need to be smiling and looking at the guest, picking up trash. It's just some simple things, but that's the difference. And that's what you've got to be able to instill into them. So immediately, of course, it was hard with the pandemic. We were open and closed 4 times in all of our parks. I had to lay off 90% of my workforce a week after Thanksgiving 2020 didn't really reopen until the middle of March 2021. And then we were on a record pace, but we did all this downtime to make the experience better for when guests come. One of the things I learned in a restaurant business is bathrooms need to be clean. There was just things, we're going to remodel these bathrooms. We're going to make sure these places look good. And of course, during the pandemic, you got to do those things, but it's those things that you want to make sure that you're having a good guest experience. So we instilled this through our core values. We took the time to keep talking about it. I'm still talking about it 3.5 years later. And I want to make sure our signs are posted behind doors before they walk out. They know what our core values are. The bottom line is there's things that we want to make sure that our team believes in. And so it got me to get the senior team to believe in it and the park manager to believe into it. We instill it into the management training program. And ultimately it gets down to our team members. Not always easy, right? It's not always easy to execute that, but if you keep doing it, keep staying on it, right? As I like to say, keep on keeping on. We're going to keep doing this, and it sinks in. And they understand why we pick up trash, and they understand why the place needs to look good, and they understand why they need to smile when they pass a guest. Then it stays, and it stays with you. And ultimately, that's what we hope to take into other ventures we want to do.
So obviously at the level, different levels of employees in your organization, I'm sure tenures, there's shorter tenures, people like part-timers and so on. What's the average tenure of an employee though? Do you have high school kids that come back year after year and through college?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we do. Well, we also have some people that have been around for 30 years, the boomers parks, not the big kahunas, but the kahuna's been around for quite a while too. But boomers parks, we've got people that have been, there for 30 years, 20 years, 30 years. We've got a lot of people that have been through the different companies over time. And some will say, this is the best experience they've ever had because they also, it ultimately comes down to, we follow the golden rule. How do you want to be treated? Do you want to be treated like trash? No, you don't. You want to be taken care of, and you want to make sure that it's a guest, they're guests. They're not, they're not customers. They're guests coming to our facility, and you want to treat them like a guest. They're team members to us. They're not employees. They're part of this team to make this a better experience. So you want to make sure that this is getting across to those that have been with the company for a long period of time and those that are just coming in, the first job ever. So we want to make sure that and also we created something along the way. We created career pathing. One of the things I did town hall meetings, I went out to the different parks and talked to different team members. And I would talk about what we're doing and where we're going. And then it was kind of open agenda and, things you learn when you're there. Because I had no idea how many people, to your question, how many people and how long they've been there. And we've had some very senior individuals, but I've been here for 20 years. What's my next step from this position? They had no idea. They didn't know what a career path was or where they could go. And there's opportunities. So we created career paths, both in Boomers or Family Entertainment Centers and Big Kahuna's Border Parks, to show where you can go within those organizations, all the way up to VP. What can I do? What's the next steps? What do I need to learn? It just opened up our eyes to a little bit that I had no idea that there's a lot of people that have been working. They just love what they were doing, to be around people. They didn't know where their next step was. What do they do? How do they grow?
Which brings me actually to think about something else you talked about in your interview is you felt very empowered as a child. You were given keys to the arcade games and so on. And that seems to have left a pretty profound impact on you. So do you think it was this sense of empowerment that you had that influenced how you empower your own team members today?
Oh, probably. Yeah. And it's funny because I say to my team all the time, I'm giving you keys to $2 to $12 million operations. You've got the keys. You're basically the mayor of that city, of your park. What are you doing? And you should have those relationships. You should be taking ownership to this. And I've empowered you. We're giving you the tools to be successful. Of course, we have parameters we want you to follow. You're not just going off doing different things, but we want to make sure that you understand you're in charge of this location. If I come in and I do kind of like the whole, behind the scenes undercover boss, I've come into a couple times and parks look great. Some don't. It tells me maybe the ownership of that location's team didn't buy in or still not buying in maybe. But we go through a process to make sure that they understand this is what we're expecting for our guests. I've given you keys. We physically did as a symbolic approach when we brought our park managers together this past year as well out in Irvine, California. here's a key. This is a key to your physical location. You run this like you're an owner of this. Now, a lot of these kids, they don't say kids, they're much younger than me, most of them, even managers. And this is the first time anyone's ever entrusted them like this. Previous company didn't entrust them. It was very directorial, type A type of manager pushing down, which is the wrong approach. If you want to get the best out of these people, you got to let them fail, hopefully in a safe environment, and they don't go too far off, but understand what they need to do. When they start taking ownership, and it's really great to see when we see they physically take ownership. There's a lot of people that have, I did this in the past, so I'm going to continue to do that. It's like, no, we have a better way of doing this. Don't worry about that. Worry about the guests, worry about your team. These are the things I need you to do as a manager when you're running these parks. And it's refreshing to see, when they do take control of that. We had someone that's been at one of our parks at the Big Kahuna's Water Park. She started out as a lifeguard, got into training lifeguards, and got into assistant manager position. Now she's our park manager at that location. She's doing outstanding. We've empowered her. We've given her the tools necessary to be successful, and she's taking it completely on. So love seeing when people do that. When we first took over during the pandemic, it was tough to get anybody. Just getting them to come out because there's a lot of government subsidies and things like that. People didn't want to work in different areas. But when we gave people those opportunities, never really saw that before. I think there was a bit of, do I trust these people? Do I trust that they're saying what they're really saying? Because I believe in acting and doing what you say. And it took a little time for them to understand that and getting an understanding that, this company's out here for me to support me. And I actually have an opportunity to really blossom and do well if I can follow with what they believe in. Again, core values. So at the end of the day, it's very refreshing to see when we have new team members come on or new managers come on and they see the difference. Because if you go into another company, maybe in our environment, maybe it was a fast food restaurant, whatever it may have been, I think you're going to see a difference, that we do care and we do take care of our team.
I'm hearing a lot of authenticity here. I'm hearing that it is walk the talk, right? Which brings me to another question I want to ask you about it's a two-part question. First, I'd like you to tell me about people that you consider mentors in your career. And then I want to branch that off. And is there anybody in particular that you've mentored in your career?
Yes. So let me go with people. I think the biggest one mentoring me, not really understanding it, was really my parents with what their businesses were. Different businesses doing different things, but they were always very open and sharing. But from a professional point of view, when I was physically a CFO, I had the Central Florida Applebee's, and my mentor was Abe Gustin Jr., the former chairman and CEO of Applebee's. He was a great guy, like another father to me. I could pick his brain about anything, and he would share openly. There was nothing hidden with him. And this is a man that built from 52 units of Applebee's and retired with 1,300. I'm now running his Central Florida Applebee's as a CFO, working with his son from the first marriage and second marriage together, COO and CEO. But I had that open dialogue with them. I'm also a commercial real estate broker in the state of Florida. So I would go out and look at the dirt or where we're going to put an Applebee's potentially, and just was able to say, he opened over half of those, meaning physically have been to those locations, half of those Applebee's that open up with franchisees, and talked about ingress, egress. So it was a great mentor, but I got to pick his brain on how did you build such a successful organization? After retiring, he was worth like $80 million. He's passed away about 12, 13 years ago now from a stroke. But he was such a great man, and he would just open up and talk to me about, how did he create the right marketing, the right tools for building the restaurants, different designs, different prototypes for different markets, how he worked through construction, what he did in finance, and how he helped the franchisees become successful. Those are some of the real tools I took with me on franchising, but restaurants as well, and how to build cheaper overhead, how to keep building them cheaper. That was the idea, is how do you keep the overhead low so that you get a better ROI? And I think I still take a lot of those same tools that he really mentored at that time today. I've helped a lot of companies franchise their business. I franchised our Boomers brand this past year. It's just, how do you take it to the next level? It's always providing the right support services for the franchisee to become successful. So that's one of the things I've taken as a great mentor. But do I help people? Of course. I've actually mentored, new college students coming into the University of Central Florida. It's where I graduated my undergrad. And so I've gone there and mentored several, and I do keep up with some of them, see how they're doing or progressing in their life. But I would, I have a lot of different ideas, and my team would say this, he's got too many ideas sometimes. I try to think outside the box. And when I'm working with people, it's try to get them to think outside the box. What do you do differently? We've always done it this way. It's like, yeah, but that might not be the right answer. How about we explore that? Oh, we tried this already. It's like, yeah, maybe you didn't try it completely. I've seen this work. Let's take a look at this. And, I think it's a lot of fun because I'll experiment, I'll explore even with my senior VP, my directors, and some park managers. What about this? Have you ever looked at it from this point of view? And it always comes back to me, what I've learned over the years in trying to mentoring people is, what does the guest see? Where do they walk? Where do they sit? And if you can get into their guest shoes, then you're going to have a better opportunity to be most successful, whatever our initiative is. New foods we want to put out, or it could be a wine, or it's a new attraction, or it's just upgraded attraction. How do you make sure that gets out? And always trying to take care of the guest. And if you can do that, you're going to be successful. And I say this to team members too, whether you're with us long-term or you're not. This is going to help you no matter where you go. And I don't think everybody thinks that. But when they start seeing, hey, this has actually helped, and they endorse it, and then they really take it on when they're trying to talk to guests, or they're trying to achieve their objectives, the goals that they have, that's on their P&L and so forth. So, I think it's really unique, but it's just trying to always get them to see another side of the story. Maybe, what about this? What if you think about it this way? And then sometimes we had to do this with our park managers. Let's do what I do when I come to your park. I look around your parking lot. Do I see trash or a bunch of leaves and things that probably could be cleaned up here? Make the place look presentable. If we have flagpoles, flags up, or the lights on outside. A lot of times, a lot of previous regime would not go to the parks a lot. Wouldn't go to the parks a lot, but also wouldn't go in there in the evening. Well, I'd like to, I don't want to be away from my family here in Orlando, but I will go over a weekend, a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and go to the parks and see what they look like at night. Put all the lights on. Do all, are lights out? Or are there hazards? You want to make sure you minimize risk. These are all the things I look at, but I also will sit in all the park benches. I'll play miniature golf. I'm not playing the game. I'm just walking through and see, what does the guest see? I'll go on the go-karts. I will go on an attraction. I will sit there and play at the arcade and look up at the ceiling. Do we have problems maybe with the ceiling, or insulation's not where it should be, or whatever it is? But put yourself in those formats. So the answer to your question is, yes, I've helped college kids, but also in the parks that I've been in, I try to show them differences. When I was in the restaurant industry, the biggest thing that the restaurant managers would be curious about is, how do I make bonus? I'm not able to make bonus. Let me show you how to make bonus. And let me show you how this works, how you'll do better with this, how you'll be more financially stable for your family. And at Applebee's and Sonny's Rope Pit Barbecue that I was there, I would teach that to the managers. So, one, they made bonus, but two, we were making more money to build more locations. So, it's a feed process. If I can get them to do this, then we get to where we need to be. But we mentor them, or I mentor them, to figure out how to get to that next level. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. And I think you hit on something that really struck with me, because you talked about, no matter what level you're in this organization, this is going to help you for years to come. And,
right.
And I can circle that back to one of my very first jobs. I was a waitress at 16. And I remember walking through my first station of 4 or 5 tables, and I'd go one at a time. This one needs a drink, and go get the drink and bring it back and ask the next table. And I did this for about 2 weeks. And my manager finally pulled me aside and he said, can we think big picture? Can we look around here? And oddly enough, to this day, when I'm coaching CEOs in huge companies, it's always let's think big. And it goes back to that memory, that many years ago. Am I getting stuck right here in this one at a time, or am I thinking big picture? So little things go a long way from those kind of things.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And if you can teach someone basically you're teaching someone how to fish. If you ultimately need to make more money and you don't know how to make more money, Well, let me show you how you can do it under the parameters of this company. We've done that with our boomers and big kahunas. I've done that at Rebounders trampoline parks, and I've done it at Applebee's and Sonny's. But I've also consulted with a lot of companies on the board in South America. How do we do better? How do we increase check average? In our business, it's time. Meaning, if I can keep you there longer, you're going to play more arcade. You're going to eat more food and beverage, liquor, beer, wine, drink liquor, beer, and wine. You're going to do something with retail. You may do more attractions. So the goal here is, how do I create an environment that's going to make, if it's parents coming with you, like I have with trampoline parks, so parents would sit, what do we do for them? How do we make them happier? How do we bring in foods or drinks or things for them to do? In our case, I'm lucky because they'll do the same thing as the kids with our go-karts and miniature golf and attractions and so forth, and laser tag and all that. But if I can make a place that you can watch games, dad's there and he doesn't want to do anything and he wants to eat and drink, got a place for that. I've got Edison lights outside and heaters, that you can just sit down. It's like you can sit in your backyard and you can have a drink while the kids are going to play. If you're playing with the kids, we can deliver food to you. I mean, we have mobile ordering, so there's things that will keep you there longer. When we first took over, roughly about an hour and a half was the time people would stay in our parks. This is before us. Now we're in 3-4 hours. Well, that's increased our check average by more than double. So by doing that, I've kept you there longer. Unlike a restaurant, they try to turn tables quicker. The idea here is I want quick, yes, but I also want you to stay longer. If I get you to stay longer, you will spend more. And that's the name of the game for our business. And so teaching that to everyone to understand that piece of this business, it's fundamental. It seems like it's common sense, but it's not common with everyone to understand how the guest thinks. If you could get to that point, then you'll be successful in this business.
So that makes me want to ask you a little bit more about, you said you went into franchising in the last year. So tell me more about that and what that looks like.
What we looked at is we knew we went into 8 separate markets, granted, family entertainment and water parks we have in California, Florida, New Jersey. But we also said, we've been able to turn this around pretty well. We've been able to get the teams motivated in urban as well as farm town, near colleges, or just very remote, tourist areas as well. And so we said, okay, what do we do well? Well, our family entertainment centers do well compared to a water park. And the differences between that is we have 6 times the amount of the employees in a water park, repairs, maintenance, supplies, all those things, versus a family entertainment center. It's kind of, well, I won't say set and forget it, but once it's really built well, it's just maintaining, and it's a lot easier and with less employees. So we said, all right, we could really teach people how to do what we do. We can give them the services necessary. We could show them how to make money in different markets. It will help the ownership, the server's private equity, to do better with this by having more locations. And so we said, okay, we're going to go into markets to franchise this year. But I also looked at it knowing the industry pretty well from franchising, and I've helped a lot of companies franchise. I did want to be in the registration states. These are the harder states. They're very litigious: California, New York, Illinois. But there's 37 other states that we can easily be in. Let's go do that. And that's what we did. We licensed ourselves to franchise our Boomers Family Entertainment Centers this year. We had indoor and outdoor experiences at our current Boomers, but I'm advocating more indoor experiences because it controls weather. If you're familiar with California this year, we had 20 weeks of atmospheric rivers, and we don't want to go through that again. And we would rather, set this up. We don't have then cancellations, hopefully, of parties, groups, bigger events, team building, corporate events in these types of facilities. And so we've decided, okay, we've targeted 37 states that we're licensed to be in, and we're going to try to franchise as much as we can going forward. We're working with outside commercial real estate brokers to find us properties of basically, if you're not aware, but over 8,500 big boxes have closed since the pandemic. And so there's a lot of opportunity out there, everything from 20,000 square feet up. And I don't mean an old Macy's or an old Sears, but there's a lot of small little boxes that have closed that these can easily go into. You have beverage, you have the liquor, beer, and wine, you have attractions, and you have arcade. And ultimately, that can fit into that space. And that's what we really want to franchise our business based off of, because 1, we control the weather, but 2, we do know how to go into many markets and know how to market this well.
If you were going to describe what you would think the best characteristics would be for a new franchisee to have, what would those be?
And I don't think it's much different than what you see in a restaurant industry. And so, I'm going to kind of go a little bit off of that, but I'm also going to say, everything, as long as because there's two different ways that we can work this with a potential franchisee. One, this individual runs it and operates like a traditional franchisee. Two, we could go in as a management plan to manage it for them if they're just going to put the investment in. So it's a little different than some of the traditional franchises that are out there. But we will take anybody that has had guest experience or some sort of retail experience. You got to deal with people. You got to understand that component. But, it's great when you're finding someone that's, not, I'll take anybody in the age demographic, but what you see in this industry are those that want to get into because their kids like this as an outlet and they want to be there with their kids and they're hoping it's going to be something that they'll have over time. I mean, a lot of these family entertainment centers have been around for 30, 40, 50 years that are out there. They're like our boomers. But so there's a lot of people that stay in this for a period of time. So unlike maybe a restaurant, fads change, this is something that's I think this is the new wave. We've got an acceleration opportunity over the next 10 years to grow this whole segment of the business. Even though there's 8,500 family entertainment centers that includes trampoline parks, arcades, bowling alleys, things of that nature, there's a lot of growth opportunity. Some big, some small. The idea here is those that are going to be, family aged, they want to be there with their kids. This is a great outlet. It could be someone that says, hey, I want to get out of corporate America. I need something a little different. Yes, there's an investment, but I'm also finding that there's a lot of landlords out there that are willing to put a lot of money up for these things that you don't have to come with all the capital to the table versus a traditional restaurant when you're building a ground up and it's going to cost you maybe $3, $4, $5 million. You could get a lot of this paid for by the landlord. No guarantees, right, of anything that's out there, but there's a lot of opportunities, my point. There's a lot of vacant boxes that we could easily go into, and landlords are looking for someone to be an anchor once again. So it's kind of the perfect storm right at the moment for probably at least the next 5 years until this commercial real estate gets used up.
I like that. And could a person realistically say, I want to open 2 or 3 of these franchises, or do you have them start with one and see how successful they are?
Yeah, no, definitely one to really see who they are, make sure that they understand our principles and how we price things and how do you attract the best folks in there. Well, we also have managed development areas that people could go into if they're, the idea with most franchise businesses, we're hoping it's not just one. They're going to do multiple locations in a surrounding area. So we would like to do developmental agreements with, and we've set that up to do that as well in these 37 states. Would love to see someone come in and, could sell, if they're a master developer, they could sell to others, as long as they fit the parameters of who we are. But I definitely want to see that, if they can open up a few of these, that would be ideal for them as, building wealth for them as well as their family.
Excellent. So as we wrap things up, I want to ask you if there was one piece of advice that you wanted to impart to anyone who is just maybe starting out in the leadership, more senior leadership. They've kind of worked their way up through the ranks. Now they're getting into the C-suite for the first time. What's one piece of advice that you would like to offer them?
I think my biggest piece that I could give to somebody is it's okay to try and fail. That has always been my mantra, if you will. I'm going to go do it no matter what. And I might fail big. I might fail small, but go do it. Don't sit there waiting for the perfect day. Nothing's ever perfect in business. Understand that's where you learn most of the gold is when you fail, where you just didn't do it right, and learn from it to know not to do it again if you can help it. And that's where some people fail. But at the end of the day, take the chances. I remember one time when I was at Darden Restaurants, and it was something totally different. My boss was telling me, he said, if you ever get the opportunity and someone's going to offer you stock or do something in the business, take it. And this was, Darden. He was a senior individual. I was doing the financial statements for Red Lobster North America at the time. And it's kind of like one of those things that stuck with me, just to, go try. You don't know until you try. And frankly, I didn't know really about family entertainment. I knew about Disney when I worked there, my parents' business, but I really didn't know family entertainment like it is today. This actually has better returns than a restaurant. A restaurant in the average world, about 20% before corporate G&A. we could be in the 40, 50% range. And I have parks doing that right now. For every dollar taken in, we take in 40 cents to 50 cents profit versus a restaurant that's in the 20% range. So it has a higher opportunity, but until you try things, you don't know that. So once you start learning that and say, all right, this makes the most sense. I don't have to build Taj Mahals. They don't have to be huge, 20,000, 30,000, 50,000 square feet, all work. And you can be very successful with that. But when people start understanding that, it makes it that much easier. So to answer the question, overall is try. Just try these different things. Until you try, you don't know. I mean, for instance, I knew the restaurant industry. I knew what our food and beverage was when I took over Boomers. We were running 30 to 50% food costs. We're running 21% food costs now because I knew we could probably get us pretty close to 20% because you're in my four walls like an amusement park. I can charge a little bit more, but I also can portion things a little bit differently. I can package things a little differently. We have a little bit more flexibility, but until you try, you're not going to know. So those are the things that I would impart that go try. Because if you're just going to sit there and wait for the perfect time, there is never a perfect time. Never. I've never found a perfect time, and something's going to come up right behind it. And something else is going to come up behind it. Can you juggle enough and keep it going where your dream is headed? Try, keep trying to go after it is the biggest thing that I tell new people when I've mentored those in college. Well, what do you want to do? And why do you want to do this? If you're passionate about it, then go try and do it. That's the biggest thing I can impart.
I love that. I often tell executives too, when you're dealing with your teams and your staff, don't just celebrate their wins, celebrate their misses, because you're celebrating the fact that they took the chance. And that's something culturally, I think organizations, sometimes they miss the boat on because everyone needs to be able to take risk, and that's how they're going to grow, and the company is going to be more profitable. So I think that's great advice.
I concur. I agree.
I want to thank you for sharing your insights and experiences with us today. Your perspectives not only enlighten, but they also inspire our listeners to embrace change, innovation, and stay resilient in the face of adversity. To our audience, thank you for tuning in. Remember, in a world that's constantly in motion, the ability to adapt and grow is not just a skill, it's a necessity. Until next time, this is Cynthia Corsetti, Executive Coach with the Care to Lead podcast, reminding you that leaders who care to lead. Thank you.